Morning. Parshat Vayichi, ending Sefer Bereshit. I don't know where the time goes. I just want to mention that this morning's shiur is being dedicated by Sari and Shlomo Drazen in loving memory of Sari's father, Mr. Joe Polanski Zal, husband of Roseanne Polanski. This is you. This is you. On the occasion of his yurtzeit. Should be Aliyas Neshama. Should only have simchas and nachas Roseanne. All the best. Okay, we have three interesting pieces, I think, that we've chosen, and I hope we can get through them all. So the first is from Rav Hutner. I always like to save Rav Hutner till the end, but I'm nervous that the others are going to be longer too. So this really could be given next week, and you'll see why in a minute. This is from his Pesach Ma'amorim, actually, but it's this week's parsha, next week. Ve'elu shmot b'nei Yisrael haboim Mitzrayma. By the way, this pasuk is in Vayichi, right? You have this pasuk. Vayamat Yosef v'kol echav v'chol hador ha'u. Rather, you have the last pasuk in this week's parsha is the death of Yosef. And in the next week's parsha in Shmot, it will list that Yosef died again, right? So, Zu hi hapam hayechida shehuzkara hakatuv mitatam shel hashvatim bichlal. This is, first of all, the only time that the death of the shvatim is mentioned. Ve'ilu mitaso shel Yosef huzkara bekan betchila sefer shmos v'nichpala besofer shel sefer bereshis. And the death of Yosef is mentioned at the end of Bereshis and the beginning of Shmos, right? Why is that, right? I mean, a person can only die once, so why is it mentioned? Why is it mentioned twice? There's got to be some significance to the fact that it's mentioned twice, and it has to relate to that has to bring out the fact that there must be a difference between Sefer Shmos and Sefer Bereshis, and there has to be something very different about Yosef as opposed to his brothers. Okay, so that's where he's going to go here. Asher hasiyum shelo hu vayamas Yosef, right? It says vayamas Yosef. Ubivadai sharoi lanu lihitorer al mitato shel Yosef, and it's kedai to look into this, the death of Yosef. Shehi parsha shenemer v'chazra v'nishnas, that it's repeated, right? Ba'od asher mitatam shel shar shvatim lo matzinu ba chazarat mishnah. We don't find this repetition by the brothers. So again, it's going to be something different about Yosef and the brothers, and something different about Sefer Shmot and Sefer Bereshit. Next paragraph. Afal pi. You see, by the way, when you'll see on this, the way I do this, because I'm not a professional, it's a much longer piece. So when you see that there's the title again the second time, it means that I've skipped, and it just picks it up right away when I pull it out of the Bar Ilan, so the title is there right away. So just ignore that title each time, okay? Next week, I'll try to take them out if I do that. Afal pi she'ein korin avot ela shlosha. We know that our avot are three, right? I'm kind of confusing in English. Our forefathers are three, right? Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, right? So, well, what we're going to discover, I'm sorry, but David doesn't like that, but it's his style. And I would say, though, but what we're going to discover here is that our three fathers are really four. That's what we're going to seem to discover, okay? So, it's not so bad now, okay? V'im hashlishi sheba'avot nigmar darga havhut shel Knesset Yisrael. If Yaakov ended the period of avhut, of fatherhood, what that means, right? The energy that we receive from the avos, each one, they're different midos that are transmitted to us, right? Umikan ve'elech, afterwards, mitanefet hi dargat ha-shiftiyut madreget ha-avhut. So now you have the energy of the shvatim, of the sons, the children, That's what we're dealing with afterwards. Mikol makom. That being said, matzinu bo Yosef. With Yosef, there seems to be something else afoot. Shahaya Chad min Hashvatim. He was definitely one of the sons of Yosef, one of the 12 tribes. Tzad echad, on the one dimension. Asher b'tzad zeh haya bo makom b'chinat dimyon lemadregot ha'avut. Right? So I'm sorry. Did I skip something? Tzad echad. Asher b'tzad zeh haya bo makom b'chinat dimyon lemadregot ha'avut. Shari Matzinu Shal Yado Shal Yosef Kruyim Heim. So on the one hand, he's a son. On the other hand, he's a father. Why? Why? Shari Matzinu Shal Yado Shal Yosef. Because of Yosef, Kruyim Heim Kol Yisrael Baneha Shal Rachel. Right? Rachel is the Akeret Habayit. Rachel is the Mama Rachel. Ima Rachel. Right? Klal Yisrael is called after Rachel. Aside from the other imaot, right? So that has to do with the birth of when Yosef was born, right? V'kol ikar tochana pnimi shel ketonet hapasim she'asalo Yisrael Yosef, and the whole idea that when he gave him that coat of many colors, Yaakov Avinu, biyichud, only him, banu al yisodah shel bechinat dimyon hanal. So obviously Yosef is different. Yosef certainly is in a league of his own with reference to the Shvatim. So there's something afoot here. You see, he's not just a son, right? He's more than that. Uba'ofen the hadragato shel madregas Yosef he shiftiyut krova la'avhut. So Yosef is now a shevet, but he also is close to being a father, an av, right? There's something, right? Next paragraph. Amar Ovadia. Pasuk in Ovadia, which we had as a haftorah not long ago. Incidentally, Ovadia, the entire Sefer Ovadia, Navi Ovadia is one parak. So if you want to get started in learning Tanakh, start with Ovadia. One parak, you can make a siyum on an entire Navi, right? So, but Ovadia says something very famous. V'haya beit Yaakov Eish, u'beit Yosef lahava, u'beit Esav lakash. Yaakov was the candle, the fire. Yosef was the flame, and Esav was the straw. In other words, the straw was burnt by the candle and the flame, not just by Yaakov, but it was necessary to have Yosef involved in ultimately the destruction of Esav will come about through Yaakov and Yosef, right? Okay? Now remember, Esav is on Yaakov's generation, right? He's the enemy of Yaakov Avinu, right? Which becomes our enemy, right? But Yosef takes the place here of an Av, ultimately through this statement by this pasuk in Ovadia of destroying Esav, right? Eish below lahava, eno sholet lemerchak. A fire without the flame is limited, right? It doesn't go too far, right? Mishanola, I mean, let's hope that what's going on in Los Angeles today has calmed down a little bit. The flame is really going very far. Terrible situation. Mishanola Yosef, when Yosef was born, Batach Yaakov V'Kodesh Baruch Hu, Yaakov trusted in Hashem, V'rotza Lashuv. So here he was all these years by the Beit Lavan, where he was by Lavan. And finally, when Yosef was born, he had enough, and he went and appealed that to the Rebbeinu Shalom, get me out of here. It's enough. I want to go home, right? I want to go home. Lashuv. He wanted to go back to Eretz Yisrael, right? Ayin Sham. B'lishonim shel Chachamim, moral lanu ki Yosef hu hashlamato shel Yaakov. So the point is of this pasuk is that Yosef was the completion of Yaakov, kederach shel hevet shel halahava, he hashlamata shel ha'esh. The same way that a flame is the completion of a fire, right? That in other words, the flame is only is only not temporary, but it's only in place. It's the lahava, it's the that takes it further, right? V'chi dafka hashlama zu He Muhammad Lika Sitno Shel Esav, and it's this addition that's going to destroy Esav. Yaakov's whole fight with Esav the whole time is going to be completed by Yosef. He's going to take it one step further. It's his power that's going to destroy Esav. V'havanat advarim. How do we understand this? Hu al pi ma shenitba'er b'diburim hakodmin. I've spoken about this before. B'chaluke inyanei ha'avhut b'madrega b'madregot binyana shel Knesset Yisrael. I've spoken about Rav Hutner says the difference of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov in terms of the development of Klal Yisrael. The inyano shel Avram Avinu hu shahaya tchila gerim. Avram was essentially the first ger, right? He's the first person that became a Jew. V'al yedei zeh hu av hamon goyim, and that's why he was av hamon goyim. Right? He's not just the father of Klal Yisrael, he's the father of every nation in the world. Right? 1.5 billion people claim Abraham to be their origin, the origin of their peoples. Right? That's the significance of the name of the Abrahamic Accords is really a good name. Right? But that's the truth. V'nyano shel Yitzchak shaya rishon shaya kadosh mirechem. Yitzchak was the firstborn Jew. The firstborn Jew. V'al yedei zeh hu harishon shenimol lishmona. He was the first to have a bris milah at the 8th day. V'inyano shel Yaakov b'zeh shaya rishon asher mitato shlema. He was the first to have a perfect, wonderful Jewish family with no problems, right? V'al yedei zeh lo yidach mimeno nedach, and nothing's going to befall the Jewish people. You can never, Yisrael afal pishachata Yisraelu. He says right away, Yisrael afal pishachata Yisraelu. A Jew, even though he sins, he's a Jew, and he's going to have to pay the piper because of what he did. You can't say, well, I'm not a Jew anymore, right? Ubekitsur amarnu b'zeh. If you understand Yiddish, you'll appreciate this. That he says, Rav Hutner, Avram de Ersh. It's kind of poetic. Avram de Ershte Geborener, Yitzchak the erste Geborener, Yaakov the erste Verfallener. Right? That's what it is. Right? He was the firstborn. He was the first convert. He became the firstborn, and he fell in. He fell in. Right? Yaakov is in for keeps, for good. Nimsa Ephod comes out to Ba'oto Anakuda. Asher bo nasa hanituk shel hachevel hameshulash lenimna. Nigmerasi dargas ha'avut. That's it. You have this threefold cord, right? Chut hameshulash b'mehera lo yunatek. A threefold cord cannot be broken apart. And here you have that threefold cord, right? Next paragraph. Okay, where are we? Okay. Ella, however, shemeniat nitugzeh akati makom parot yeshba. But as good and wonderful as this threefold cord is, there's something missing. There's a danger. There is something that threatens the future of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov and Am Yisrael. Dinahi the Yisrael afal pishachati Yisrael, who granted that if a Jew sins, he's still a Jew. V'kol maseh hamara sheba'olam lo yivku mi ben Yisrael et kedushat Yisrael shebo. And as terrible as a Jew goes off the derech, it could be the worst thing. He can do the worst things in the world, right? But he's still a Jew. However, mikol makom, there is a place where there's a putza. There is a place to break through and leave Klal Yisrael. Mikol makom adayin efshar lekdushat Yisrael mit shetifka al yadei hahalacha. What's the how? There's a halacha. Habal nachris vlada kamosa. If someone marries a non-Jewish woman, the child becomes like the mother, as we know, right? So that is a way that's the end of the story of the Jewish people, right? And it's so tragic when we see it so many times that we've seen this, that, you feel that this is the last Jew in your family. What are you doing? You're ending, there's no more Jews in your family because of this, right? So, but that still exists. That possibility, even after Yaakov, that possibility still exists. How do we stop that, right? Umitzad zeh, I mean, we might have individual cases of it, but it will never happen to totally destroy Klal Yisrael. Why and how? Yosef. Umitzad zeh akati yesh kan hechetimsa. So because of this danger, you still have the possibility, shel ibud shem Yisrael, of losing the name Yisrael, not being a Jew. V'kanhu makom madregato shel Yosef atzadik. And now Yosef comes on the scene, on the stage, and he is going to solve this problem that it will never fully destroy Klal Yisrael. Shekain al yado, through the dramatic action of Yosef, right? Gedurahi pirtzazu. He sealed up this break in the wall. Ota nisa asher Allah katuv b'mikra vayanas achutza. When he ran out from Eshes Potiphar, when he rejected her advances and he ran out, right? Achutza nilklata betor chelek kavua b'shir komata shel Knesset Yisrael. This created the spiritual energy of eternally for the Jewish people. We will never turn the lights out this way. It can happen, and tragically the assimilation is happening. It's terrible, but we have a promise that it will never completely destroy Klal Yisrael. Ultimately, Klal Yisrael will remain intact. Everybody will come back, right? That's because of Yosef. So this is really something that Avram did not accomplish, neither nor Yitzchak nor Yaakov. This is an act of avhut, right? This is a kind of a fourth stream of fatherhood, right? Ba tumunahi hashmira ledorot, and this is eternal. Asher al yada, through this muftachu, it is promised to us kiyuma shel kedushat Yisrael, the existence of the holiness of the Jewish people. Shelo yishlapo avdun derech hapirsa shel halacha denolda kamoto. It will never destroy the Jewish people, and this gives us hope. When we see, in our generation, we see the enormous assimilation. We can find comfort, at least, in the fact that this is not going to be the end game. It's not going to be the end game. Of course, we have to do what we can to bring the good end game back. But in any case, umechaver hu adavar shenikra Yosef b'lashonam shel chachamim, and now Yosef is called by the chachamim hashlamato shel Yaakov. Now we understand why Yosef is called the completion of Yaakov, the icing on the cake, right? The flame on the fire, right? Yaakov shel Yaakov kederech shahalava, the flame mashlima et ha'esh. The flame completes the fire. Eish soref b'mkomo, he's repeating. Eish burns in its place. Lava, the flame, sholet et merachok, it goes further. It takes it to the next step, right? Dibimkoma hainu guf atzmiuto ulemerchak, right? Mekomo, that's the essence, right? Ulemerchak, the distance, hainu zaro, that's the children. So that the future, the flame is the future of Bnei Yaakov, of Yisrael Saba, right? The Jewish people. Beit Yaakov Eish, Ubeit Yosef Lahava. He's repeating the pasuk. Eish Soref B'Mekomo, Shenotzer Adam V'Kedushat Yisrael Alav. Ef Sharlo LeKedusha Zu Shetichaber. It'll never be destroyed. Again, the Ershtef follow Yaakov. Eisho Shal Yaakov Soref B'Mekomo. The fire of Yaakov burns in its place. Beit Yaakov Eish. Aval Lahava Sholetet LeMerchak. The right Lahava he pashtut shel ha'esh, the spreading of it. V'al yada shel halahava yechol ha'esh litpashet ad b'li gvul. By the flame, the fire of Yaakov can just go anywhere, every generation, eternal. Beit Yosef lava, al yedei lava shel Yosef, through Yosef. The flame is Yosef. Sholetet hi esho shel Yaakov, the fire of Yaakov. Gam alatoldos is now on the next generation. In Yano shel Yaakov shehu ashlishi sheba'avadhu. Yaakov is the third of the avot. Shal yado nase hachut shel ahavot lechud mishulash asher lo yinatek. True, it's a threefold chord. Al yado shel Yosef mitpasheset hi minir anituk gam al toldotav. And Yosef takes it a step further. So as we said, the confusing thing in English is our forefathers are three, but really our three fathers are four. Okay? Next, Ve'ela toldos Yaakov Yosef. Ve'ela toldot Yaakov Yosef. Right? That's he's saying pshat in that pasuk. What do you mean? Eila told. Before Shemal discussed this pasuk. Eila toldot Yaakov, all the brothers, but Eila toldot Yaakov Yosef in the sense that he is on a league by himself. Right? He becomes a quasi of. Oh, now let's go back to our original question. Why is the death of Yosef mentioned twice? Let's go back. Ki Parshat mitzato shel Yosef nemra b'siyum Bereshit. The death of Yosef is mentioned at the end of the Sefer Bereshit. And it's mentioned again at the beginning of Sefer Shmos. Bod shemitatam shel Shvatim ein bo chazora mishna. Where the other tribes you don't see that. V'lo nemra ki'im b'tchilaso shel Shmos. Only the death of the Shvatim is only in the Sefer Shmos, not in Sefer Bereshit, right? V'ayinu the Yun Ramban. The Ramban will answer this question because the Ramban describes for us correctly. Only the Ramban can say such a thing. Perusha shel Torah, L'shono HaZahav. The Ramban says b'hakdamato the Sefer Shmos in his introduction of Sefer Shmos, shekartav ki Bereshis hu Sefer Avot. Bereshis is the Sefer of the fathers, right? Ushmot hu Sefer Abonim, and Shmot is the Sefer of the children. Right? You see that, right? And that's what you see here. Ubetziruf ladvarim anal mita maheret mitoch zeh parsha mitato shel Yosef. Now we understand why Yosef's death is chazoras v'nishnis. That Yosef's death is mentioned both in Shmos and in Bereshis. Ba'od shalom atzinu dugma zeh mitasam shel Shah. You don't see this with the others. Hainu mishum demadreko shel Yosef hu shiftiut kroveh la'avut. That Yosef's level is a son close to being a father. She doesn't want to say quite he's a father, but you see there's fatherhood and sonhood, right? He was both. Ube'emet Messiah who Sefer Bereshis b'mitato shel Yosef. So that's how Sefer Bereshis ends, right? The death of Yosef. Mipnei shehu ha'ma'ora ha'acharon b'darga shel avot. This was the last breath of avot, of Sefer Avot. Right? So why does it say that Yosef died? If it's Sefer Avot, that Vayamat Sham Yosef, right? That tells you that Yosef has avut qualities also, right? Clearly, that's the final statement of the Sefer of Father of Avot. Ukemokein matchila Sefer Shmot, and Sefer Shmot begins b'mitato shel Yosef, with the death of Yosef. This is the first step towards the next level, because he created the possibility of that next level by his contribution to Avut, that the Jewish people will remain forever. There will always be Banim and Bnei Banim and Bnei Banim. Ki keinu darka shel halava, because that's the utility of the flame. Beit Yaakov lahava mitzida echad, on the one hand, ochezet b'gachelet, it's holding on. Right, it's like the candle. It's got right. Umitzad hashen, it's holding on to the fire, the flame. V'hasheni mitpashetet lemerchakim, but it goes much further. Right. In fact, what do they say? In physical reality, the hottest part of the flame is the part you don't see. The hottest part of the flame is what you don't see. So metaphorically, that's even the next generation. It's eternal. Right. That's pshat in that physical reality of fire. Right. So, umitzad hasheni hi pashtus lemerchakim shehalavato shel Yosef achuza mitzad echad b'sefer Bereshit v'holechet umitpashetet ad self sefer Rabbanim ben porat Yosef ben porat alay ayin. So he ends with this pasuk, which the eternality of Yosef. Okay, I would like to end this year with this. I mean, it's such a powerful piece from Hutner. It's so beautiful. Okay, let's go to the next two pieces. I think we'll have time for everything, I hope. Yep. Okay. This piece is from the Torah Tamima. Everybody knows the Torah Tamima, famous Pirush on the Torah Tamima was the son of the OUisrael HaShulchan. The OUisrael HaShulchan was the Rov of Lita a few hundred years ago. Wrote a masterpiece, the OUisrael HaShulchan on the Shulchan Aruch, and his son, the Torah Tamima, was a very special. He was actually a banker. He worked. In fact, he lived in New York for a few years. He was a fascinating personality, a tremendous Talmud Chacham. And he wrote the Torah Tamima Chumash. What Torah Tamima is, some of you know what the Torah Tamima is. It's the Chumash and Rashi, and at the bottom he brings all the sources in Chazal on the Psukim, or most of them. Fantastic piece of work. But he added something after he finished it. He wrote another sefer, Tosefet Bracha. It's the things that he didn't say in the Torah Tamima. I must tell you that the Torah Tamima is somewhat a controversial sefer. Some of the things he says has been controversial in his time and a little later. But we did never experience what we experience in our time, the ugly idea of putting Sforim in Chayrim. That never happened with the Torah Tamima, but there were certain questions on some of the things he said. However, listen to this. This is hello. This is something special for us, and I think it has it will resonate for our modern ears, right? Vani bevoi mi padan mesa alai Rachel. I say that because, one of the things that irks me today is that not in our society, but in many societies, children, as they grow up, they call me by my first name, the mother says. So you have children calling the mother and father by their first name, right? It's almost obscene, right? So you can't you destroy what a mother is, you destroy what a father is. It's tragic. We just spent a half hour discussing the uniqueness of fatherhood, right, and childhood, right. There's a uniqueness here. But in any case, listen to this. Va'ani bevoi mi padan mesa alai Rachel. Now, what happens in the parsha at the beginning, right? Yaakov made Yosef promise to bury him in Mitzrayim. We had that, right? We have that in the Parshat. Promise to take me to Mitzrayim. No problem. I'm going to take me to Eretz Yisrael. Bury me in Eretz Yisrael. I want to be buried in Marat HaMachpelah next to Rivka, right? And he promised he's going to do it. Now, before he dies, he calls Yaakov in again a second time, and he has a whole other conversation with him. Please be moichel me that I'm not being buried with your mother Rachel, right? This is a very powerful moment in the Chumash, right? Rashi, a very powerful Rashi, where he brings the psukim, why Rachel, and he explains to him that Rachel's going to be buried here to protect Klal Yisrael when they go into Galus, to give us strength to come back. And here we go to that's Kever Rachel, the great Kever Rachel. Actually, our halacha shir last night, I spoke about the idea of a matzeva, a monument, and the source of that, Ramosha Feinstein says, of making a matzeva is from this chapter in the parsha about Kever Rachel, right? In any case, I say it's a very dramatic Rashi. In fact, there's a special tune that most people are not aware of anymore today. I think it's been lost in many circles. I think in Hasidic circles it hasn't been lost yet. There's a special niggin to this Rashi when you teach this to children, right? And in fact, Reb Tzadok HaKohen, who we have learned some of his stuff in the past, Reb Tzadok HaKohen of Lublin, one of the great Balei Machshava of the 20th century, the 19th century. He actually, right, he died, I think, I can't remember his years right now. That's not important. But Reb Tzadok had a melamed fired in Lublin because he taught this Rashi without the niggin. That's how important this niggin is. Very powerful. And the niggin actually bespeaks. And I think there's somebody that recorded one of the journeys or something. It's recorded somewhere on one of the contemporary music records. Okay, aside from that, okay, here's the point. He tells him, Vani bevoi mi padan, when I came from Padan, meta alai Rachel. Now remember, who's speaking to Yaakov is speaking to Yosef. I'm explaining to you what is terrible. I just want you to know that Rachel died when I left Padan. Yesh laha'ir, asked the Torah to me. Beautiful. This would go right over our heads, right? Listen to the genius here. Yesh laha'ir, lama lo karo toma kan imecha. Why didn't he say to Yosef, your mother died when I left at that point, right? Kemosha ragilin likro la'em b'vnei banav. Isn't that what you normally call a mother to the children? Ukemosha amar hu Yaakov. He said it before. Havo navo ani v'imecha. He said another pasuk. I and your mother. B'sof perik toldot. Again, be'et sheshalach Yitzchak et Yaakov leveit Lavan. When Yitzchak sent Yaakov to the house of Lavan, Amarlo, lech Padan Aram, go to Padan Aram, Beita Betuel, the house of Betuel, Avi Mecha, the father of your mother, right? V'kach lecha isha mibnot Lavan achi mecha, and get a collar for yourself from the brothers of your mother, right? V'lo amar Avi Rivka. Yitzchak didn't say to Yaakov, Achi Rivka, v'chein sham v'yishtachu lecha b'nei imecha. Pasuk after pasuk, right? Ubemet kachu haloshin haragil ba'olam. This is the way of the world, right? You're speaking to a son. You mention about your mother, right? V'la meshoneh kan v'karo ota mipnei Yosef b'shma. Why did he refer to Rachel as Rachel, to his mother, right? To his wife, right? So, listen to what he says here. And it might sound like it contradicts this sociological abrasion that we have in our time, but it really doesn't. I want to bring you a statement of the rabbis of Chazal. Be'inyan madregot toarei kavod chachamim. There is a pecking order in the title that we give chachamim in the time of the Gemara. Times have changed today, right? Gadol mirav, bigger than Rav, is Rebbe. This is in the Gemara. You'll see by the people who have the Rav is important, Rav so and so, but Rebbe so and so is higher than Rav. Gadol mi Rebbe is Rabban Gamliel. So you have from top to bottom, you have Rabban, Rebbe, Rav. Gadol mi Rabban. What's bigger than Rabban? Shmo, the name itself. Kilomar, Zeh hanikra b'shmo levad, the Chacham who is only referred to by his name. Hillel b'shamai. He's going to bring other examples. You never see Rav Hillel, right? Rabban Hillel or Rebbe Hillel. You'll see Beit Hillel talking about his Talmidim, but Hillel. So that's the pecking order. The name, Rabban, Rebbe, Rav, right? Hu gadol mikol torim. The name is the highest level. Kemosha nikra avot, right? The avot, right? Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. You don't say Rav, right? Moshe v'Aaron v'kol Navim. You don't say Rav Moshe, even though he is Moshe Rabbeinu. He's our Rebbe, but we still don't give him a title, right? V'gam b'Talmud matzinu harbe chachamim. See, in the Gemara, you see many chachamim shenikru b'shmam levad. They're only called by their names. I'm giving you examples, but he said Abaya, Ilfa, Ula, Shmuel, V'od Harbe. The list goes on. Ubisof Mesechet Sota, at the end of another Gemara in Sota, Mishamet Yossi ben Yoazar, V'Yossi ben Yochanan, Batlu Ashkalon. So this is the dramatic moment. There was a change in the power and the knowledgeability of Chazal, of the rabbis. Each generation got lesser and lesser until it came to Nebuch, our Dor Yosem, right? But the time when Yossi ben Yoazar, Yossi ben Yochanan, titleless rabbis, when they died, Batlu ha'ashkolot. That was the end of the period of Ashkolot. What's an eshkol? Literally, it's a grapevine, a cluster of grapes, right? But what it means is, Pirush b'Gemara, my Ashkolot. What does it mean that was the end? Ish shahakolbo. These were people who had it all. They had it all. So the nameless the titleless generation was the end of the people who had it all. And then they were tzaddik, chassid, yosher, etc. And then afterwards we begin with the titles, right? V'hinei ma'alot gedolot ke'elu nikru b'shmam levad. Their names alone. Below kol toar. V'chein chashiv shem kama gedolei chachomim v'tzadikim hanikrim b'shmam. So, what he was telling Yosef how great his mother was. He was talking about her in the third person, right? He wasn't saying Imecha, your mother. I want to tell you who your mother is. She is Rachel. She is titleless. She is on the highest level possible. He's not telling him you can call her Rachel from now on. He's now just giving him a picture of who and what his mother is. That's what's going on. Okay? Final piece. Okay, this is also good. This is from Rav Schwab, and also has a contemporary ring to it. We'll soon find out. Vayichi Yaakov be'eretz Mitzrayim. Now, this Parsha Vayichi is a Parsha Stuma. You know what a Parsha Stuma means? It's a sealed Parsha. Usually, you know when the Parsha begins. Like you see in the Chumash, you'll see a big Samech or a big Pei in the Chumash, Sam Chumash. That's chapter divisions in the Torah, right? Pei means Tucha, Samech means Stuma. There's a little bit of a difference between them. One ends on a different line. Not important. It's a technical difference, but that's our chapter. Now, by the way, it's important to point out the chapters that we have today are not our inventions, right? They are invented by the church, because the first publication of the Bible, this forum, were done by secular scholars, church scholars, right? So all of these chapters, we have chapter and verse. That's not ours, and sometimes there are mistakes. You'll see they're really not accurate, right? So why do we keep using them? Well, right, because for generations already, we've been printed Sforim. We printed Sforim chapter and verse, right? If we would take them out, scholarship, Limud Torah would be in disarray, right? We rely on them now, at least for a reference point. There's nothing holy about them, but we rely on them for a reference, right? So that's it. But in terms of Parshas Vayechi, there's no beginning. It's a continuation in a stream on the Uriah on the page. That's why it's called a Parsha Stuma. It's sealed. And Rashi doesn't comment. There's a reason for this, and Rashi brings two reasons for it. Uber Rashi, Mekora Bereshit Rabbah, it's a medrash. Lama Parsha Stuma. Why is this Parsha hidden? Lefi sealed. Lefi shekivan sheniftar Yaakov Avinu. Nistimu eineim belibam shel Yisrael. Mitzoras hashibud shehitchilu l'shabdam. Because with the death of Yaakov begins nistimu eineim belibam shel Yisrael. The hearts and eyes of the Jewish people were sealed, were closed. We were blinded. Of Yisrael, from the tsaras of the Shibud, the bondage began. For the death of Yaakov, the Egyptian slavery, Galus began. Shehitchilu Sham, they began to lord over us, right? Adkan l'sham, that's Rashi. Ubepashtus, that's only one. We're not going to go the other answer he gives. I don't think he's going to mention Ubepashtus advaram nira. But I want to tell you something. The simple statement here seems to be soter divrei Chazal b'seder olam. This statement of Rashi in the Medrash contradicts another statement that we have from Chazal. Shekol zman, this is the statement of Chazal in another place. Shekol zman she'echad min hashvatim kayem lo haya shibud. Kayam lo haya. At any time one of the fathers is alive, one of the shvatim, right? By the way, Shekol zman she'echad min hashvatim. That's how powerful the shvatim are. As long as the shvatim are alive, there's no slavery. V'imkein sarach bir inyan hashibud she'itchilu b'mitzvas Yaakov. Levi was the last of to die, and Shevet to die. And after Levi's death, the rabbis are saying, Chazal are saying, right, that this was the beginning of Shibud. So you have two beginnings of Shibud. What's going on here? Keshenit bonein b'hanhaget Yosef. So he's gonna demonstrate that yes, there are two beginnings to anti-Semitism, two beginnings to the suffering of the Jewish people. There is Nazi Germany in the beginning of the 1930s, when some Jew wrote a book that was this thick about the beauty of how Germany treated the Jews so wonderfully, right? There's nothing new what we're going through today, right? And that's what he's going to explain here. There are two dimensions to the beginning. There are two beginnings. One is not so readily seen. There are two beginnings to the slavery, to the oppression, to the anti-Semitism. When you look at Yosef's actions after his father died, there's an amazing thing here. I'm going to go quickly because I don't want to go into the next year's time. Davar tema shebetom mem yemei. Remember that Yaakov called his father in. We mentioned, and he asked him to please bury me in Eretz Yisrael, and he promised him, no problem, I'll do it. I'm the viceroy in Egypt. I'll take care of it. It's done, right? But what do you see here? What happens now? After his father dies, on the 40th day of the when he was being embalmed, the 40th day of the mourning, the Egyptian mourning period, the Lamed Yemei Ha'avil, the 30th day on his Shloshim, right? What does he say? Vayedaber el beit paro lemor imna matzati chen beinechem dibru na ba'ozne paro lemor. He goes to Paro, let's say his wife. He goes to the queen, says, could you do me a favor? Could you please speak to Paro and get permission from Paro to give me permission to take my father to bury him in Eretz Yisrael and Canaan? This is an amazing point, Rav Shua, also a genius idea here that we would never think of this. This is regardless of, Rav Shua was in our time, right? Brilliant idea. You hear what he's asking here. All of a sudden, right? Tein beinechem dibru na ba'oznei paro v'amru Chazal. The rabbis say, lemi amar legadla legedulat shetipayes lemalka v'hamalka tipayes lemelech. In other words, you go to the queen will go to the king. V'lama lo kanus hu. Right? So he's quoting a medrash. The medrash actually says this, right? Rabbi Yeshua the Sichnin b'shem Rabbi Shmuel she'ein avel nichnas paltin shel melech. It's not proper for a mourner to go in to the palace. That's what one rabbi says. It's not right for the mourner to go in. That's what the medrash says. Amnam kasha hara Yosef hu hashalit shel haaretz. I still have a problem with this. It's not good enough, says Rav Shua. He was the viceroy of Egypt. He was running the show, right? Ubilado lo yarim ish et yado. If without him, nobody could raise their hand, vet raglo, or their foot. B'chol eretz Mitzrayim, right? He was in charge of everything. Ve'heichan matzinu. How do you find? Shehamishna lemelech yitztarech liyishtadel al yedei kama militzim v'gam levhakes b'safa rafa v'loshen tachanurim kazeh. How do you find that he has to go begging? He has to go asking, could you do me a favor, to the queen, to whoever? Could you speak to Paro and let me take my father out? What's going on here, right? The Tiritz HaMedrash, the Medrash answers, She'ein avel nichnas lepaltin shel melech, gam ken kasha, sh'arei sibat hayuto nira ka'avel, okay? Haita machmat shetitnaheg kfar shivim yom ba'avelut. He already had 70 days of mourning. V'hagufa kasha shebiyuto amoshel haya bekohu la'asot kechevitz libo. He could have done what he wanted. What do you have to ask? What are you, right? V'imkein lama himtin v'lo kavar at Yaakov takev. Why didn't he take Yaakov immediately? What did he have to even ask? Why didn't he just go? At that point in time, he could have picked up and taken his father without asking Paro. Nothing, right? Take him miyad lachar p'tirato, after his father died. V'im nemar, right? You're going to say, even we know today, people get up after Levi, they go sit shiva in a different town, right? There are halachas about, halachic issues about that, but we're not going to go into. But why didn't he do that? V'im nemar shan hagazushel chanatav avelut haita minimuse mitzrayim. But maybe he had respect for the customs of Egypt, this whole idea of chanatav, of embalming and whatever they do. You want it right? Al pi Paro, that was according to Paro. He wanted to give respect to Paro. B'vchinat rak hakisei agadel, right? So the only thing, I hold one thing over you. Paro tells him, I sit on the throne, right? So maybe he wanted to give respect to the throne, right? Maybe that he had to stay, right? Mikol makom hayalo likanes leParo. He could have gone himself in. Takef achar mitat Yaakov. He could have walked into Paro immediately. Kodem hayuto nirab kava. Before he was wearing it, before he rice kriya, before he was unkempt, right? Lo dio al savav, to tell Paro, listen, my father asked me, I'm going to take him to Egypt, right? Hu hadavar asher dibro chazal kishemet Yaakov Avinu betchila shibud Yosef Mesa. Now I'm going to tell you. He says this is the pshat when Yaakov. This answers our question. I've already given away, right? They let the cat out of the bag, but he's saying there are two levels to anti-Semitism. There's two levels to their servitude, to their making us slaves, and the anti-Semitism, right? It goes in stages, right? It already started. It already started. He says, Koach HaMemshalah, right? She'ne'avad, hainu she'ne'avad mi Yosef Koach HaMemshalah. Somehow, Yosef, at this point, when Yaakov died, he lost his authority. Something was going on that Yosef could not. Somehow, he was stripped of his power. Ube'oto shah yarad dargato, the second column, liot rak ish mechubad bechacham va'ashir gadol doma lamelech. Now he was just a wealthy guy out there in Mitzrayim, but somehow he had lost his power. Obviously. Otherwise, why would he do this, right? Aval lo haya od hashalit al haaretz. He was no longer the viceroy of Mitzrayim. Umitam zeh lo nichnas Yosef tekevel par. For that reason, he went in every day. He had free reign to go into the palace, right? Va'achar hashivim yom lo haya mina kavod likanes lepaltin hamelech. It wasn't honorable to go in at that time. Kashu avel v'shalach bakashato al yidei shlichim, and he sent messengers, right? B'dvarim rachim, with pleading, right? Not demanding, b'dvarim rachim, right? Dugman hanhagat hashtadlanim lifnei aparetz. This is very similar to how Jews survived, how we survived through Galus. You had shtadlanim. You had Jews who would, they'd pay off the wealthy, the guy to get to the king, to get to the governor, whatever, to get out of the country, to get over the border, right? That's what he did. That's what he had to do. B'meshech shnot hagolos, through our hundreds of years of Galus, right? Inyan hashpalazu, this lessening, this dramatic lessening, miyuto mishnah melech, from being the viceroy of Egypt, asher alpiv, yotzav alpiv, yavo, that people would jump based on whatever he said. Mechuneh b'shem hatchalas hashibud. This was the beginning of the shibud. There are two beginnings of the shibud. By Yaakov, that was the real beginning of the slavery, right? But here was the beginning, maybe unseen. The unseen. Oh, Shaddai and Lo, here Gishu b'nei Israel. B'nei Israel didn't feel it yet. We didn't feel it yet, what's happening, right? Kemo shebeparsha stuma. Kemo shebeparsha stuma ein hatcholos haparsha chadosha nirgesha. Just like you don't feel in a parsha stuma that something new is happening. And that's what he's saying. That's why it's a parsha stuma. Because this galus that we went into, you didn't feel it. We didn't feel it. We don't feel it, right? It's happening kind of slowly, right? Kemo kein chala hagalus b'li hargosha. So it started without our feeling it. We didn't recognize it. It just flows in, right? Uba at that very time, Shanifter Yaakov Avinu, when Yaakov died, miyad hitchil Yosef lefached milakenes al paro kasher haya ragil adata. At that very moment, he was afraid to go in to Paro as he had done all the years in the past. Zui kavanat amram. This is what Chazal say. Shenistamu eineim v'libam shel Yisrael. That's what it means. What Rashi quotes the Medrash, right? The Gulls was shenistamu. Read again. Shenistamu eineim v'libam shel Yisrael. The eyes, right, and hearts of the Jewish people were blinded, were sealed. They didn't see anything. Pirush shebet machmat rov haosher v'chaya hamanucha, because of their wealth and comfort, the Jewish people, and their right shahaya lam b'aretz Goshen. They were living in Goshen, right? They had it all. Nistimu einayim milarot milibo milavin, so their eyes couldn't see and their hearts didn't understand. Their mind didn't lahargish, and to feel, to sense hatchalos hashibud, the beginning of the shibud. Ubezeh yuvan. Tsiva Yaakov at Yosef, when Yaakov commanded Yosef, Al na tivkureni b'Mitzrayim, don't bury me in Mitzrayim. Amar Anochi esek yidvarcha, I'll do it. Done, he said, the original request that Yaakov made. Va'amar lo Yaakov hashavali, and he swear to me, and he swore to him, right? שממענתו של יוסף משמע שהיות שהוא השליט והמושל הרי בידו לעשות כל מה שיבקש. It was clear that he could do whatever he wanted, whatever he was asked. ויאמר יעקב הישבע לי שידע שתקע במיתתו תתבטל ממשלת יוסף. But Yaakov knew prophetically what was going to happen when he died. And therefore he asked him, swear to me that you're going to do this. It's not going to be simple. Swear to me that you're going to do this. Because Yaakov knew. Sheyeda sheteka b'mitato titpatel memshelas Yosef v'yitzarech lavo el paro b'itnatzlut shel avi shebiani, an avi excuse me, like the father of a pauper, right? Okay, let's see what he says. Also a tremendous piece of Torah. Okay, so I think we had 3 nice pieces today. From my perspective, I had nothing to do with it. I presented to you 3 very special pieces today. Okay.